and lunch. So, and then, just I think the board's probably been aware of some of the real safety issues we've had on our campus. And when there's 2,000 coming and going, we could have 10 RV kids come on campus and we most likely wouldn't know. So our campus supervisors are pretty good. They say we don't recognize these kids and we'll round them up, but it's a semi-frequent occurrence that we have kids showing up on campus that shouldn't be there. I think the tradition and notion of an open campus is pretty cool, but I think if safety is our number one concern, then it's something that we might want to consider.
And then you talked to the leadership team about it.
Yeah, so generally there was support. It wasn't unanimous. It was kind of a mixed bag, but it's my feeling that my leadership team would support this if that's the route we decided to go.
And I think the concern also is that this is not. I mean, tradition is strong in this community and at Yuba City High School. Has been my own children went to that school and speak fondly of the campus. I just think it's a different era.
Yeah. And
there is just the concern about the safety of our students. So I'm just putting it to the board again for consideration and direction to see. Because if we're going to consider this in terms of messaging, now would be the time to prepare everyone for the start of the school year. And that would be my recommendation. Seriously consider this for the 23-24 school year.
I have a question. How does anybody approach this for the students? And there was much over.
Yeah, for most definitely. So, I didn't want to get ahead of you guys, but certainly, we could throw out a survey. They're not going to like it. We know that for a fact.
My biggest concern is we expect these people to be becoming young adults, and we are treating them more and more as children. So that is a real problem.
Yeah.
And I would agree, Shelley, because I was the one who ran that town hall meeting, and trust me, it was not fun. And I think
more than one meeting.
Yes, and I understand that because trust me, it was not fun. And I think I bring this to you, and I understand that it may not be a popular decision, and I understand I'm not going to be a popular superintendent for bringing it forward. But I feel that I have to make this recommendation in terms of what I'm seeing and hearing from the school side regarding the safety of our students. So I bring it forward, but I acknowledge it is not going to be a popular decision.
Is it really more about safety, or is it really more about ADA loss?
I'm more concerned about safety.
There's no ADA loss if they've been there. There's zero ADA loss if
they're there for the morning.
If they're there in the morning and leave for the afternoon. It's a loss of education for the student, but not ADA.
So I know we brought up safety, and if we close the schools, I mean, we've had things that have come up, but not just related to student safety, but staff safety. And if we are closing down a school that has roughly 2,000 students, and there are a lot of blind spots, I just don't feel that we have covered our bases in all the other areas. When it comes to facilities and stuff like that, to be able to make that decision. I don't think we've addressed it yet.
Well, the food service has already addressed that. We were preparing to close the campus several years ago. Yeah, to serve the students.
No, I don't mean food service. I mean safety.
Having that many more kids contained on campus.
You guys have so many blind spots, and not having the security, not having the surveillance. Well, I mean, that's not going to fix the issue, right? But we have had some serious things that have come when it comes to staff feeling safe, students feeling safe, and now we haven't addressed those other issues, and now we're going to close it off, and now we have the potential of increasing those incidences on the site. So
the surveillance piece is in motion of adding surveillance, just a FYI.
And I would also say that the solution to having struggles on campus is not to turn them loose to the neighborhood. I would think that's kind of a disservice. I think there are problems that need to be solved, certainly. I think if they work on that or continue to work on it, but I would also think it wouldn't be a go-to.
The number that keeps circulating in my head was on the slide that showed 30 students a day don't come back after lunch. Well, you've got almost 2,000 kids. 30 students is very few. So we're gonna take away open campus from all of them because 30 kids can't make it back.
There were also tardies and then also
Oh,
increase
yeah.
in people.
I get that, but there are things that could be done to incentivize kids to get back to class besides taking away their open campus lunch. Manager Larsdown.
So I have a point of clarification. In your presentation, you mentioned that 80% of your student body is economically low income,
just below, yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So I guess my question was just point of clarification. What does that have to do with like people being on like because their families don't make a lot of money, we don't want them on this. I just need that clarified. Like,
No, well, just kids on free and reduced lunch tend to be at higher risk of not being successful academically because sometimes there's not the support at home. That's what I was referring to, but not across the board, obviously.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my other question is, who do you see? And I guess this would be for you, Doreen, which is who do you see as the primary stakeholder in that community of Yuba City High School?
When you say the primary stakeholder,
Well, the ones who have the most to lose and the buy-in of the school, the ones who do you see as the primary stakeholder? I mean, regardless of my own personal opinion, who cares, whatever, but who are the ones who are the most, who have the most to gain or lose?
Right, so if you're talking about the individuals, I think I'm saying this in terms of the students.
They're minors.
Yes.
I'm speaking of adults.
And that would be the staff and the parents. And I understand for me that I understand that they what the students might want, but we're charged with, when I'm charged with, making sure that they're safe.
Right.
And therefore, I understand it will not be popular and it would be a very difficult transition. But this board made a conscious decision to have River Valley closed. And so the premise is that, these reasons why we wouldn't keep campuses open and closed.
My question about stakeholders was not an agreement of do or don't.
Right.
Mainly, I'm just trying to get to what the question is because which is direction, right?
Right.
Well,
So we need. I'm not.
the report only.
Right, report only, but she had mentioned.
Yes.
Am I wrong?
Right. Whether or not
will-
even to continue this discussion.
Okay. I see. Okay, so that would be. I know we're not taking any action. We're receiving the report and asking questions on it, which is my question about the low income comment, as well as
Yes.
who we see as the primary stakeholders as a lead to. Those are the ones we go to as far as the adults who have a long-term view. So parents, staff. So that would be, should we continue this conversation? I don't think any of us would feel comfortable about making decisions without a good contingency of our stakeholders giving feedback, right?
Right, and I think that would
Yes,
be right, and
yeah.
I think so and I don't know where we are now because of all the safety concerns, and I would guarantee, because that is the question that comes to me fundamentally every single time there's a school incident. Why am I not recommending that we close the campus? Because there are concerns. Not by all parents, but there are a group of parents who reach out very frequently. And so those are some of the things. And again, it's when it's in the news and the media, that's when everyone talks about it. And then it kind of just dissipates. So again, I'm bringing it forward. I've had conversations with Principal Olson. And
I think it's important to note that it is, in this day and age, highly unusual to have an open campus at a high school. That's what makes it so special.
How many kids do you think actually leave campus? I mean, do they travel very far? I mean, they just don't like.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting phenomenon. One thing, it's calm on campus at lunch because half the kids are gone. I don't know if that's good or bad. I don't know. I'd have to say probably half if I'm estimating. And then I've been out driving around, just kind of looking at the neighborhood, and there's kids that go pretty far. I mean, most of them are sticking to the close markets and things like that. But, certainly a lot of times I'll go to lunch after the student lunch around 2:00. they're supposed to be in class at 1:40. I'll go to about 2 and there's still kids coming from, 6, 8, 10, 12 blocks away.
So is that Carl's Jr. still a hot spot for kids to go to?
I don't know which fast food joints are. I mean, it is a long walk to get to a fast food place. I mean, almost a mile probably, I would say.
Well, when I was there, it was, like the fast food places like the Taco Bell and the Carl's Jr. were all pretty hot.
Yeah, so if you're, honestly, I'm not Charles Jr. is, but if you're going to walk to the Taco Bell or the McDonald's, you're going to have a hard time getting back on time. If,
They go a lot.
yeah, that's true. Some kids are driving, that's true.
Yeah, there's those, so initially, we do have the food trucks that are in front of the
Right.
high school. We have the walkers, because usually the younger kids will walk to the market or walk over to Son's Cafe.
Mhm.
Our driving kids are usually going to In-N-Out or Carl's Jr. or Taco Bell.
Yeah.
Generally, that's the likely, or McDonald's
On point there, yeah.
This would be a great, I mean, I think we all agree that we should, it sounds like continue at least the conversation.
Yeah, it's true.
Is there any other input or are we open to continuing the process?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. Say that.
Is there any other input or comments before we move to the public comment? Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Principal Olson.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time. I'd like to recognize Tina Lukens. For her comment.
Good evening, again, board members. I appreciate the dialogue on this. We need to address student absences. It is a significant issue with regards to both funding and education of our students. We need all hands on deck, and we got to figure out how to address attendance. It is not just a closed campus issue. So I want to very much be a part of that ongoing dialogue. We need to incentivize and make sure our kids are in our classrooms, because they're not, and it doesn't seem to matter which period it is. If we, whether we close campus or not at lunch, Yuba City is technically a closed campus at all other times. And I can tell you, I watch kids enter and exit our campus all the time. It is not the closed campus that River Valley High School is. River Valley High School is the only way you're getting in once the gates shut is through the front office. At Yuba City High School, there are multiple entry and exit points that I watch kids access at all hours of the day. So until we really solve that issue of the ease with which students can enter and exit our campus, that's the biggest safety issue. And I could tell you that from staff on campus, especially those staff working off the Park Avenue parking lot. There are people daily who are concerned about the students who enter and exit over there. My other concern is I do appreciate Member Pretty's discussion of tradition. My students too, like the superintendents, went to Yuba City High School and greatly appreciated the open campus, appreciated the freedom it gave them, and they did not abuse that privilege. Good campus, good students will stay on campus if you close campus. Students who are not going to stay on campus are not going to stay on campus if they have sub entrance and exit. So I really do think it's important to address the overall issue, whether you ultimately choose to close campus based on your responsibility to protect the safety of our students. I will support that decision. I support the recommendation of our principal, bring it forward and encourage the dialogue. But we've got other issues we've got to solve as well. And I just don't want us to lose sight of those. Closing campus is an easy option, although I agree, be difficult when you start to dialogue with community who have a great deal of respect for the tradition. And I have been at those town hall meetings, they were not pretty. But again, I want us to be part of addressing the bigger problem. We got to get kids in class, and we got to get them staying in class, and we got to get them engaged in class. And I cannot tell you enough times how critical that is to the success of our kids. So thank you.
Thank you. Moving forward, no comments from the public on items not on the agenda. See you. Welcome to speak down. Right,
I'll still be here.
Guys.
Moving forward to the consent agenda, did you want to stick 13 feet?
I have a question.
What?
I just asked it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have two questions. I have a question and a request. My question with regards to this is, can you kind of tell us what it means when it's a contractor overhead and profit?
Sure. Yeah, I can explain the whole thing to you. This is actually a credit to, got stepped in. Yeah. This is actually a correction that we did the change order and I think it was March 23rd, that $769,000 change order. In that, it had a credit back for all the shade structures that we end up purchasing. In that also was a 10% overhead profit. So whenever a contractor does work within the public entities, it's limited to 10%. That's all they're allowed. That's their allowable amount to gain back is 10% overhead profit. So in our contract, we actually have, if you take a deduct, a credit back, they can keep up to 5% of that and then return back 5% of it. Because there's still some coordination. Even if we purchase shade structures, they still have to coordinate deliveries, offloading, and the placement of the structures. So that gives them that 5% of the overhead profit doing that. So this is an adjustment to that previous change order. And then what the adjustment will allow is them to gain back that credit back we got, the $769,000. We're giving the contractor back $34,000. That is a 5% of the credit back to do the coordination. And that's within the contract. The contract actually states that we can give up to 5% back to the contractor.
Is that a minimum?
That's a minimum, yes. That is a minimum.
So it's, the contract states that the credit back shall include a 5% for overhead profit. Minimum, not those things.
Yeah, and I've got the contract section.
And so really it was an error on the prior one. When it gave the entire 10% back to us, it should have said 5%. The contractor, my guess is caught it afterwards, and then they contract more closely and identified that issue.
And then that's exactly what happened, because when we come back after the meeting, it was approved. So we could have done this a couple of ways. We could have just redid change order number 1. But what this does is actually make the adjustment to change order number 1 to get us to where it should be.
So my question then is that if I'm understanding Mr. Button correctly, then they get a 10% profit, right? Just because public entity, that's their, right? And then a 5% because of the change order. So is it 15%?
No. So okay. So let's backtrack to the original change order. The original change order was the contractor struggling to get the financing.
Right.
So we said, okay. So yes.
We said we would buy them.
We'll buy it.
And they don't have to buy it from the manufacturer.
For the cost of the equipment and the 10% profit associated with the cost of the equipment. Okay, so that was the prior change order. It should have been the entire cost of the equipment and 5% credit back because they're allowed to keep the other 5%.
I see.
Not allowed by contract. That's what they get.
Okay. And the benefits of not just redoing the mistaken change order is.
I don't think there is there's not a benefit either way. Yeah. It's just doing it.
It's the same. It's just adding a change. And this is typical of Dutch construction. You have several change orders, and we just kind of adjust the project as you go. So it's not. It's at the end of the day, it's the same effect.
So and also let me get the overall effect of this entire process is that the district is saving at least $34,000, not 5% profit from the original contract. In addition to that, I believe that we were able to purchase the equipment at a lower amount than that was actually contracted for. So there's some savings there. So there's a net benefit to the district.
Right. It's infinitely easier to do that when it's on the original change order. But thank you for explaining that.
I agree. It would have been better if we did it all on this one.
My other question or request, I've had some people reach out, and I guess you can take it as a complaint of how much time it's taking. And I've had the same complaint when it comes to play structures and whatnot. But when it comes to these shade structures, I understand that there's supply and demand, and there's like supply chain issues and whatnot. I guess my request is it possible for someone to please share what the proposed timelines are for the different projects that are going on, so that way when I am approached, if I obviously I can direct them back to the district, but I'd like to have the understanding of completion times.
Yes, I'll take that and I'll work with Mark and we'll identify something to take out to the sides as far as what we know, what we're being told by the contractors.
And there was two main reasons this winter. obviously the wet weather was historically rainy, but the other was when they set their bolts, the base bolts, the pattern was off. So what happened is they had to go back and get re-engineered, re-DSA approved, and then refabricated. So that was for the shade structure. Yes, that was the biggest delay in this first phase projects. Second phase projects are hoping that does not occur.
But can that please be relayed to the board as well?
Well, I did notice it in your Friday letter, in your last bullet point, right? Is that what you're typing? There's this shade structure, RVS Lynn Crestier, Wayne and Ferry will be completed in May. Second, it started YCS Park, King, and Riverbend, but there isn't.
Like Gray Avenue shade structure is still ongoing.
Okay, this will begin when school is out. Phase 3, consisting of Albert Power, Andros Furnace, Lincoln will bid out on June.
So specifically Gray Avenue.
Ah, you're right.
Yeah, and they're supposed to be completed also at the end of the month because they got all the issues resolved. So now they're trying to get them put together as fast as they can.
I guess my point is, it really, like, I know from what was shared to me, the students were really disappointed, and I know that being at AK myself, I know that is reality, you know, of like the kids being able to see it, this big shiny thing, and that they want to go and they want to experience it and all that stuff, and then to be told like, hey, pause, it's going to take another couple weeks, or it's not open yet, and you know, I mean, for kids that are leaving that school, can be a bummer. That's, I guess, where I'm coming from.
Of course, it's disappointing.
Yeah.
Good news, they'll have them at their high schools too.
They wanted to experience the one at Gray. You know, yeah. Thank you.
Something that it's going to be done in the first class.
Perfect. I don't have any other questions.
With that, close the campus at Yuba City High School, can we put in swing sets and
Board's desire.
with that, that motion on the consent agenda?
Second.
A motion by member Dami and a second by member Ciociola. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Moving on to action 14A, expulsions, suspended contracts, readmission. Can I have a motion?
I move that we approve as dispensed in closed session.
On a motion by member Pretty and a second by member Poor to approve 14A is discussed in closed session. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? I forgot to note on the last vote that member Lang was absent, and then of course she'll be absent for the rest of us. Moving on to 14B, it's a first reading, so we don't need to approve them, but are there any questions? The policies? Okay.
Yes. Okay, so I would like to draw the board's attention to 5141.52 suicide prevention. Members, pages 2, 3, and 4. The bold components. So reading through this, I'll just summarize because I think I might make Shelley proud with all my red marks here, the amount of red marks I have. With regards to, I'd say in general, the language is very open, and with policy, also I'd say the voice is wrong. It's first person plural as opposed to it should be third person, right? So the board, the district. So and also with regards to our policy, if we adopt as written, which I realize this is a first reading and will undergo hopefully many proofreading and more refined. But in general, I will say the issues the questions I have is that it is very broad as far as our response or our support for a. Okay, so in addition to the voice, which is wrong for policy, I sense this seems to be cut and paste from like a brochure that is sent out to families, or instead of this is a policy because of the way if you need help or someone that you can talk to, instead of that paragraph. Yeah.
For that information, member Cecilia brought this to my attention, and so I've been made aware of it. I've passed it on to staff. This is a requirement or a request that was made during the federal program monitoring process with the Department of Education. However, I agree with member Cecilia, and so there will be revisions that will come back at the next board meeting for you to consider. So noted and passed on to staff.
So with regards to those revisions, is the best practice to submit our red lines or to just have you all go back to revise with the understanding that it is very squishy language. If we're held to it, if it's too broad and not specific, then it leaves us
Correct.
open.
Right. So I need to go back, and that was a conversation I've already had with staff regarding the request by the Department of Education during the FPM, and then also hearing the concerns I have on feedback in the notes regarding the grammatical issues and also the intent of what the Department of Education is requiring, and then also in terms of specificity regarding this. So it's been noted, it's been passed on to staff, and we'll come back with revisions.
Should these be, sorry, I'm just following up my questions. It should ask to be recognized again, but should any of these have a federal or ed code requirement? Obviously, we want it cited, right? Just like the rest of the policy, but also as we are considering the language, is it possible before moving forward or at the next reading that we also get a copy of the language of the code, like what the requirement is, so that we can also do our due diligence in saying, this is the code, this is what we've got, this is matching or it's not matching, if we are adopting it. Does that make sense?
Yes, but there's not also always going to be an education code that you're going to be able to necessarily align with. So I hear what you're saying. So
There's a requirement, and it's written somewhere.
well, right, but as I shared with you, not all policy is a requirement because of just education code. There's other reasons. So we will provide as much information so that the board can see why this language is existing, right? The recommendations.
No, I understand. Thank you for that clarification. Like, it doesn't have to be ed code, but there is, if it is a requirement, it is written down. It
Right.
can be cited.
Well, it would
No,
be
that's
it would be the rationale behind why we had the finding and what the request of the Department of Education on that particular language.
Okay.
For that.
Yes.
So.
This is ongoing, with all board policies, there's ongoing adjustments, requested all the time.
I just want to cite.
Does the school board association, do they have language on this already?
That is, much of that language is from the school boards, but there is also, even with the school board recommended language that's been reviewed by their legal, often the Department of Education or the federal government can say they're not sufficient. I have an OCR, one of these policies exists because we had an OCR complaint and a finding, and this was in order to resolve the case. They wanted language added to our policies.
So there's probably your requirement.
I just want to cite it, Shelley. All right, you like it?
Right. So someone will note that, so the board will be able to see why we're doing what we're recommending.
Right. Thank you.
Yes.
And
You're
that's
welcome.
specific to that one.
Right.
Any other questions?
And I would just say that not to cause more work, but if these are changing because of a ed code or a requirement of some kind that is written down somewhere in if we could in the future receive that so that we may say, okay, this is the requirement, how is our language?
And if you recall that I brought policy prior to this meeting, and so usually you would get the index and it shows the notation of a new law, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
So I understand what you're looking for on this, and so we can put together something like that in terms of a matrix, so you can see the why.
And I do remember that. Thank you. I do remember that. I just didn't see that for any of these other ones.
These are being brought forward because of, again, an OCR complaint, the federal program monitoring process. So these are coming forward out of the norm. So I see but we can put together an index for you.
Okay.
There you go.
And the same would go then, I'm sorry, please let me know if I'm out of order.
No, go ahead, keep going.
Okay, so the same, I would go again, citing, so that it can be whomever, you know, is reading these, because these are available to the public and should be, can see, what were the requirements for which we are putting that in, including, but not limited to, proposed administrative regulation 1312.4 Williams Uniform Complaint Procedures, where the language, including English learner, oh, no, wasn't it? Oh dear.
It's the two including, I think that was on the discrimination one.
Yes, that was the discrimination one.
Yes.
Well, that's grammar
Yes.
and ease of comprehension.
There was the question on the food allergy one as well, so we will go back and cite all of your
Yes,
the requests.
the food allergy one, which does actually have a citation. So that one. Yes, the non-discrimination and harassment. And those ones. So I think that was it. I think that was it. Yes. Okay. So sorry. Thank you for humoring me.
So mine has to do with the high school graduation requirements, and I believe this is Pam had that.
Yeah, I'm going to call that out as soon as we're finished with the, are we to that one? Are there other questions? Okay, I wanted to call out changes to 6146. One, this is one that we are specifically, there is new policy from CSBA around this, so that it is not our changes that we are requesting to be made aren't the only changes to it. There are other pieces that were recommended by CSBA, but I wanted to call out because we specifically met to make one adjustment. So when we do something, I just wanted to make sure you're aware. We made we had a meeting with our graduation committee, the high school principals, and members Roscoe and Dami were able to join and take a look at our policy. We were requesting to adjust Albert Powell High School's graduation requirements by 20 elective units lower. Our high school graduation requirements for continuation high school were higher than our surrounding other continuation high schools. And we wanted to bring ours more in line for a couple of reasons. Reason number one, we have a discrepancy in when students from RV go to Albert Powell, because of the difference in the number of units that students earn and a block schedule, they got a break by transitioning because Albert Powell is on the same model as Yuba City High School, requiring 220 units. So to more align that to our surrounding continuation high schools and to equal, make the two programs equal, we put in, and we're requesting that the board approve this change at our next meeting, that next year, or for the end of this year, students are able to graduate from Albert Powell if they have come from River Valley High School with 220 credits. That's a reduction for them. And if they came from Yuba City High School for 180 credits. And those the credit reduction would only apply to elective credits, not any of the core content. But what happens when you're a struggling student, you have spent time retaking core classes and you haven't had as many opportunities to take those elective classes, and that tends to be what they're missing once they get to Albert Powell. So, and then we don't want to eliminate the core classes from their graduation requirements. So that is what we changed specific to this. It would be great if the board is amenable, if we could move this one separately and approve tonight, or just so we can move forward with plans to graduate students based on the new requirements. But we understand if you need more time for consideration and want to bring it with the rest of the group next time.
So my understanding is, kids who go to Albert Powell are usually, I mean, one of the main reasons they go, not the only, but one of the main reasons they go is because they're credit deficient. And there's just not as much opportunity to take electives. I mean, they're not even offered really at Albert Powell.
And I appreciate your bringing that up. One of the challenges that we run into now in the continuation model is that the laws changed about 3 years ago, requiring electives to only be taught by a teacher credentialed in that area. So in order to have an elective in journalism, it has to be taught by a teacher that has a credential in English. So that really limits, based on the teachers that are there, the number of electives that can even be offered. And not just because of the number of credentialed teachers on those campuses, that's one piece. But the other piece is that their schedule is full with trying to, work with and support the students in the content areas. They don't have time to teach a number of different electives.
It's kind of a question concern, not in particular when it comes to like reducing the elective credits, but I think we heard today that with regards to how many kids are credit deficient as sophomores and juniors, I guess my concern has to do more with potential influx to Albert Powell when it comes to students, and when we're reducing the overall credits as well. How are we going to support that?
I'm not understanding your question in terms of how will this impact the number of students going there?
Well, I mean,
There's a big rush towards
I think
to
it's
go to
I think it's a separate question referencing particularly Mr. Ricketts' comment earlier about the credit. So it's separate, right? Or not?
It's separate, but it's aligned through this because this could have that impact. Or it could have an impact on the staff, the student to staff ratios there. And, we have a lot of students that are credit deficient, or it was presented today. I don't know if the numbers are correct or not, but, if we're reducing the overall graduation requirements when it comes to the electives at this particular school site, it opens up this particular school site being an opportunity for a lot of students to go to make up their credits, correct?
It wouldn't necessarily have more students be able to go. You still would have, the kids would have more opportunities to graduate. We do have a max amount of students that you can accept to Albert Powell. There are limits to the number of students.
Okay, but we have such a large number. We have a larger number than what the maximum capacity is for Powell. I mean, is the district looking
that could take advantage? That would be to take advantage.
Because ultimately, doesn't all of this stuff impact, our dashboard, right? Of the kids that are graduating.
Yes.
So are you saying it's an enticement to go to Albert Powell?
I think of it as being an enticement to go there. If they're wanting their high school diploma as opposed to none or a GED or whatever, I'm not saying that this is a bad thing. I think it's a great thing for students who need this, right? But mine is kind of the domino effect that could come from this. Are we looking at that?
I think there's actually, I'm sorry.
Especially because we've taken, staff from Albert Powell in previous years, and so
they're all back.
I know they're all back, which is fantastic. But what I'm saying is,
so they anticipate. So during the the master facility planning process, we were asked the question of maximum capacity in order to anticipate that we might need more students to go there. So are we looking at that in terms of facility? Yes, because the conversation was, what do we want the maximum enrollment to be there at any point in time? We've never hit that number. And so I think that is something that we'll have to watch and see, is if in fact we see a shift of students who are credit deficient agreeing to go to Albert Powell, because you can't just send them. And if they want to go there because they see now an opportunity to earn their diploma, I say more power to it, and let's solve that. Because again, they're not gonna graduate with a high school diploma. Many kids choose to stay at the comprehensive high school because of all of the things that they get to do there.
Yeah, it's actually a different, we have challenges convincing kids to go to college.
But sure, but the graduation program could be a motivator for kids to go there.
I mean, and if it's something like, is there progress monitoring that's happening right now that tells us that, hey, these kiddos are, yellow, these kids are like red, they're golden,
So the counselors are monitoring and counseling the students about the fact that they are credit deficient, and if they stay, they're not gonna earn a high school diploma, and there's an opportunity. Many students turn it down, and we can't force them to go.
I think, it's interesting you brought this up because it's kind of something I was thinking about in relationship to the closed campus earlier, because I've heard from folks at YC that so many of the kids who think they can just wander on and off are the ones who are credit deficient and aren't there to graduate because they're senior with hardly any credits. So what's the point anymore? So they leave when they want, they show up when they want, they smoke pot when they want, et cetera, et cetera. And that's actually a conversation I would be interested in continuing later too, in a broader sense about meeting that, because there are an impact on our campuses, and I don't know, discussing a closed campus, if it were to be closed now, these students are just there too, but they still have no investment in success. So what can we meet them? So
you have to give them access to education.
yes, so that's what I'm saying is what other options, that's a discussion I think we should be having. I'm agreeing with that, is that we should have that conversation about what other ways could we be serving them. And so I don't know that it would change. I don't think it's changed anything about how I feel about this policy, but I would be interested in bringing that back as a deeper conversation if that's something others are interested in. Yeah.
I have a question, because I think I have a couple of friends who teach at Alabama, and I know that they're very concerned about whether or not some kids are going to be able to graduate who do not have the current number of electives that are necessary. They've completed their core curriculum, but the elective issue is a problem. So would it be possible at all, and I don't know what the ruling on this would be, but would it be possible to, for this year, approve this and then come back to it if necessary, if people want to, so that the kids who are working this year and have done all their core curriculum can go ahead and graduate, and then we can revisit it at a later date and see if that's a policy we want to continue. Would that be a good idea?
Yeah.
I mean, I came up on it.
It's first.
I know. I would like to.
Thanks.
So can we make a motion then to vote on 6146.1 forward?
So first it would be to waive the second reading, a motion to waive the second reading, and then a motion to approve.
Or just on one.
Just on the, yeah.
So I
Just
motion
this
to
one.
waive the second reading for the proposed board policy 6146.1 high school graduation requirement.
I'll second it.
A motion by member Sept and a second by member Pretty to waive the second reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Member Land is absent, so then it would be a motion to approve.
We need a motion to approve. I'll make a motion to approve this one.
So
I'm not gonna say the number.
All right, a motion by member Pretty and a second by member Sept to approve policy 6146.1. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Member Lamb is absent. And then I definitely do think that is a conversation that should be continued, and actually, hopefully when we get to priorities too, it should be something discussed. That's just, I know something I wonder a lot about, is meeting the needs of all those students. Thank you, member Donnie. Moving forward to 14C.
Yeah, so this is C and D. It's going to be the same explanation, but essentially it's our replacement cycle for computers on the first one. So this is staff computers, and so essentially we're looking at a 5% replacement cycle, which is 20% of the computers. Robert Equipment, Director of Technology, went out to bid, so we're requesting approval of the lowest bid to move forward with this purchase.
Question, how much of it is all of this coming from one-time monies, or are we using ongoing funds for any of this?
This is coming from, well, I guess the supplement concentration, so it could be considered carryover. It's an ongoing revenue source, however. And it's also an ongoing need of the district.
Is it on the cycle, correct?
Due to every year. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when looking at the paperwork for each three of the bids, I just want to confirm that we're making an apples to apples comparison when it comes to the 3-year service contract, maintenance parts, et cetera, because they say them differently in the 3 proposals. So even though the language is different, you have confirmed that these are apples to apples comparisons, correct?
So could I have approval to have the Director of Equipment address this question? Did you catch the question?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yes, it's actually in the Lenovo contract itself. So Lenovo actually uses a 3-year, and we are our own supplier of repair parts and able to service ourselves. So it's the same for every one of them. Yes.
So then why would your vendor be including that if we already?
So it's inside the budget. So each one of them has the way that they do it. So they will come into and say, there's a SKU code for each one of those. And so the SKU code that they use for the bid that we approved is embedded inside that SKU code. 2 of the other bidders pulled them out and added them in as separate line items, I believe is the case.
So let me see if I can, I might be able to. Lenovo, I believe, has a absolute standard warranty.
Correct.
Doesn't change no matter who the vendor is
Correct.
you buy it from.
Correct. That is correct.
So it's the same warranty for all 3 contracts.
Okay,
Yeah.
even though RTI lists it as an add-on,
That's correct.
That's correct.
but your proposal is not to go with them anyway.
That is correct as well, because they were higher. But it was higher because they were just a higher bidder, so all around. But yes, it's all included inside that SKU code.
Thank you.
So just one more question on the funding. This money is money that we have to spend on something or it goes away. Is that true? I'm just trying to understand if these are one-time, this is a one-time purchase. You know, I know we're going to be doing it.
So that's
Future, but
so.
I want to just make sure that we're spending one-time money on one-time purchases.
So this is ongoing purchases that we'll do every year. And actually, I'm not clear if I don't think it's one-time supplemental concentration dollars. I think I believe it's in our normal supplemental, our LCAP plan that is ongoing.
Oh, because the staff report says the fiscal impact is $227,083 coming from Fund 1 supplemental concentration grants.
Fund 1 and supplemental concentration, that's all accurate. So Fund 1 is a fund that is most of our expenses and revenues go through. Supplemental concentration funds are part of the LCFF that is ongoing revenue. We did speak earlier that we have some carryover and supplemental concentration from the prior year to this year in the amount of about $7 million. This is an ongoing need, and this will be an ongoing expense.
His actual revenues is probably using prior year dollars.
I don't know the answer to that necessarily, if it was, it'll switch to ongoing revenue next year because it is an ongoing need.
Because we're just taking 20%, so then it's 5 years till we get 100%, and by that time, we'll be doing the biometric, whatever, it'll be another thing, right? It's gonna be the new thing.
Yeah,
whatever.
it's not a one-time need. And so, actually, I would anticipate this is really actually coming from ongoing supplemental concentration dollars.
Some of the other classroom technology that we're purchasing, we're using the carryover funds for. That we've spoken about it previously.
But it's also written into the LCAP.
Yes.
I have a question.
when it comes to the warranty piece, and I apologize for not asking this before. So if we're purchasing 20% every, we're replacing 20% every year. So that puts it as like the lifespan of this is about 5 years, right? So if we're purchasing a 3-year warranty, if the device fails within those 3 years and it's not able to be refurbished or fixed, I guess, is it a replacement
It would be a replacement,
under warranty?
not in year 4 and 5.
3.
In year 3, it would be, yes.
And so, why don't we just correct 5-year one?
Well, they might offer it, but we're a self-maintainer, so we can actually fix it ourselves for a lot cheaper price than the added expense of the year 4 and 5. And typically when you get to year 3, when you're in year 4 and 5, the amount that break are not really huge. So we typically just will replace those anyway on off-cycle replacements.
To get a warranty 5 years.
And these are these teacher?
These are teacher machines, correct? Yeah.
I was like, think pads. I mean, that's what
Yeah, these are the teacher machines, correct? Laptops.
So do people use different? No, I know. Here's in fact that like we use HP. Don't they?
Well, those are the older ones that were, so those will be
those are
replaced.
going away. You're going
Correct.
to fix.
Correct.
You should go to Mac. No.
Just double that price back at it.
Yeah, that's not really good. I want something that's
Sorry.
not.
I make racks. Thank you.
You're welcome.
If there's no questions, I make. I'll second.
On a motion by member Adami, a second by member Ford to approve purchase 14C. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? And then the motion carries. Moving on to 14B, are there any questions, or did the questions once they answer for 14C because they're raised in one?
Make a motion that we approve.
Second the motion.
Motion by member Pretty, a second by member Quilty to approve 14B. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We're going to go ahead and, well, actually, should we give comments before we adjourn? Yeah.
I know.
Oh, I don't know.
Words.
And yeah, we should do that too. So put that one later. Okay. Board reports.
I did get a comment, or I did talk to Wanda, and she did share a concern when she attended the facilities committee meeting thing. And I share her concern as well. At least what was reported to me was the agency in which we have delegated the task of, going out and doing the master plan. Their lack of understanding or research when it comes to which schools have leach fields and which schools don't, and then the expenditure or the wasted money of printing out all of those maps and doing all of that only to then go back and have to do corrections to fix those errors, which for me could have gone to the city to find out where the leach fields are, where the replacement leach fields are. So she did share that, and she did commend Mr. Button on being able to notify the team immediately of like, there's a leach field here, that's great. So thank you very much, Mr. Button, for being there and sharing that. But when it comes, I think her concern and my concern too is when you look at the fiscal responsibility. I mean, it may not be. I mean, when we're dealing with over $100 million, this is not that big of a deal to our pocketbook, but they should have done that research before.
Now, thank you.
We paid for it.
Well, do we pay for the printing? No, we've already paid that.
Okay, well, whatever. If they have to reprint it, that's fine.
I
But
think the
the
biggest,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
the concern is that buildings were being placed on leach lines.
Yeah, no,
That's what I heard from her.
yeah, well, and you have, I mean, it comes back to, do they have an understanding of this is the leach field, but because it's a leach field, there's also a replacement leach field. And so, it has specific parameters, and even though the leach field is here, there's nothing underneath here, doesn't mean you can put a building on top of that. So it begs to question their level of understanding. So I want to share that, and if you can please do the whatever, and then let us know. Yeah.
Let us know what.
I mean, let us know what came out of that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We can do it.
Thank you.
Any other committee reports?
Pam talked about the graduation
Yeah.
committee.
We actually had a meeting with them too. Like my last. I feel like we did.
Yeah, Pam wasn't here that time. Okay, no, it's
Any other? No? I have no written communications from the public. Mercedes was unable to attend tonight, so Dina goes first.
You again. Good evening again. I just wanted to call out some recognition tonight with your board action. Four of your employees are leaving Unified. And I'd like to particularly call out Jennifer Howell. Jennifer Howell is a teacher at April Lane, teaches 5th grade. Her teaching partner, Amy Rivas, left Yuba City Unified last year. And Jennifer Howell is going to go towards the Lincoln area and join her down there. So it's a sad loss for all of us that Jennifer is leaving. Leticia Castaneda is a return to Yuba City Unified. She came back to Yuba City Unified as an ELD TOSA, but because of issues with regards to being able to hire enough math teachers, she, like me, has the luck of having a credential she didn't really want to use. She's got a math credential, so Leticia taught math at Gray Avenue for the last 2 years, but she'll be going to Woodland to be an ELD TOSA, so congratulations to Leticia. You also acted on Tanner Boland, who spoke to you at the last meeting, and then Robert Bonifant leaving to go to Gridley. It's just sad when they move on and leave us. I'd also like to call out Jenny Farman. Jenny addressed you tonight. Jenny was recognized by the Feather River Service Center Council at their awards dinner just last week. And she was recommended by Bertha Uola. So it was really fun to get to see Jenny at that occasion and here tonight. I'd also like to thank Board President Nicola Roscoe for being the host. He was it did a wonderful job of hosting and making us all feel welcome. And then appreciate the fact that the floral designs on the table were the product of Yuba City High School students in the floral design class of Eileen Desmond. So it was a wonderful evening, and I thank all those who helped to recognize outstanding educators in our area. And then finally, in your board action to hire new employees, I don't recognize the other 4 names, but one of those 5 you rehired is Greg Johnson. Greg Johnson was a long-time teacher at Yuba City High School, teaching AP Physics, the principles of engineering, that whole Project Lead the Way pathway. The science department at Yuba City High School is super excited that we've managed to stay in touch with Greg and that he's returning. He left to go to Chico because it's closer to his home in Reading, but apparently he really wants to come back and work with all of us. So we are really glad to welcome Greg Johnson back. I appreciate the district's support in helping Greg rejoin us. He's already jumping in, wanted access to the textbooks so we could start to prep for, he's teaching 5 classes when he comes back. So he's going to teach 5 preps, principles of engineering, the IED class, which isn't what it sounds like. It's not improvised explosive devices, but I can't totally intro to engineering design. That's it. And AP Physics 1, AP Physics 2, and Physics of the Universe. But there's only enough physics sections for Mr. Johnson and Mr. Bagdis. So I won't be teaching physics next year. So yay! I'll just be teaching chemistry next year. So I appreciate your board action tonight, your time to let me tell you about some of the great people who are will be working for Yuba City Unified or have worked for Yuba City Unified. So thank you.
Thanks. With that, we'll go ahead and re-adjourn to closed session. Are there any comments? I figure we can get it at the end if we really find.
Yuba-Sutter.live's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at plumaslakeselfstorage.com.